Enslaved Americans and their descendants transformed the lands to which they were brought to become the most successful colonies in the British Empire, and it was the relentless buying, selling, insuring, and financing of the bodies of enslaved Africans and products of their labor that made Wall Street a thriving banking, insurance, trading sector, and New York City, the financial capital of the world. And when I was visiting Wall Street with my friend Jeannie, we were visiting Roosevelt Island, and we stayed in Wall Street. This is the basis of which Wall Street was founded. It's a plaque of a slave auction block that was held and rooted right there in the root of Wall Street. So what does that tell you about our financial system? Formerly enslaved people engaged with the democratic process. Federal troops tempered widespread white violence. Black Southerners started branches of Equal Rights League, the first human rights league in the nation. They organized voters and headed in droves to the polls, where they put enslaved people in the seats of the enslaver. 16 black men served in Congress at that period of time. The country began to resemble a democracy. These black officials joined with white Republicans, primarily in the South, as amazing as that might seem, in Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, to write the most egalitarian state constitutions the South had ever seen. They helped to pass equitable tax legislation and laws. They prohibited discrimination in housing, in public transportation. They established public schools, established a universal state-funded system of schools for all children. They passed the first compulsory education laws. Just 5 years into Reconstruction, every Southern state had enshrined the right to public education for all children within their constitutions. So I see the reparations era that we're now entering and are in, bringing back that and building on what was started in Reconstruction. I'm interviewing Professor William Dougherty at Duke University. He provided the research. He's in North Carolina, in Durham, and he provided research for bills, one in the House and one in the Senate. The bill in the House is called H.R. 40, and it's a bill to establish a commission to study and remedy reparations, not just study it, but to do something about it. His focus is on wealth inequity, and I'll be talking to him about that, because he said if you look over time, the fact that blacks could not own homes, they didn't have anything to pass on to their youth. So it was wealth is an enabling dimension, he said, of involvement in the political system and in home ownership and having legacies for your children and grandchildren. He also talks about cities establishing legislative requirements, and I really like this, we got to do this locally, regarding corporations doing business with the cities to provide historical analysis of their relationship to slavery. And that is being done right now in Chicago. So you'll know which corporations you want your city to be supporting in their commerce. Princeton Theological Seminary in Princeton, they have now got pledged $27 million in scholarships to African American students in the seminary. And they are starting a Black church studies center within the seminary to look at and this is why, because they looked at their historical ties, and their board of trustee, the president of the board of the trustee way back in slavery time accepted the gift of an enslaved woman. So they're trying to atone for their own history. I'll be interviewing the Pennsylvania State Representative Chris Rabb, who has introduced a bill in Pennsylvania to start a state-level program of reparations. I'll be interviewing Professor Hakeem Williams. He's the chair of the African American Studies Department at Gettysburg University, and he travels all around the United States doing healing within Black communities because of the trauma of slavery and that history of the Jim Crow laws and what is going on now. So he does work within Black communities all around the United States. I'm also interviewing Reverend Ron Daniels. He's president of the National African American Reparations Commission, which has proposed a 10-point reparations program that includes a formal apology by the U.S. government for slavery and Jim Crow laws, an establishment of an African Holocaust Institute and Museum that will look at the contributions of slaves, of enslaved people to this whole country and to our economy. Education for community development and empowerment, affordable housing for healthy Black communities, and repairing the damages of the criminal injustice system. So reparations to me is a huge part of my trip coming up, and as soon as this virus clears out so I can get on the road.